June 28, 1941, a small farm outside Dubno, western Ukraine. The evening light is fading. On the dirt road that cuts through the farmland, the sound of engines grows louder. People in the area already know the noise well. Since Operation Barbarossa began, German armored units have been moving through every village and field road in this region. Ivan Melnik, 43 years old, is a local farmer. He has no military training, no weapons, and no formal role in any resistance group. He works his land with basic tools, a steel plow, wooden carts, fuel cans for his water pump, and glass bottles used for kerosene lamps. His family, his wife and 2 children, stay inside their house as the noise gets closer. Ivan walks toward this edge of his field to see what is coming. A German column appears on the road. A ZDKFZ 251 half-track, several supply trucks. At the rear, 2 Panzer III tanks. Local farmers usually step far off the road when German vehicles pass. Troops often stop to take food, tools, livestock, or force men to help move equipment. Nobody wants attention. But today, the German column slows down near Ivan's property. One of the supply trucks seems to have a mechanical issue. Soldiers climb down, shouting to each other. The rest of the column halts. Ivan stays low behind a haystack and watches quietly. The tanks keep their engines running. The sound is steady, deep, and unmistakable. One soldier begins walking toward the fence line of Ivan's farm, likely checking for usable resources. Ivan knows what usually happens next. They enter the barn, take anything they want, and question whoever they find. Inside the barn, Ivan has tools, fuel, and chemicals used for farming. Items German troops often confiscate. He does not want them inside. He also knows that people who resist or argue are sometimes beaten or taken away for labor. Ivan stays hidden. He studies the distance, the vehicles, and the soldiers' positions. He is not planning a heroic stand. He is simply trying to understand how much danger his family is in. The soldier near the fence stops, looks around, then turns back to the column to report. It gives Ivan a brief moment of relief. But the Germans clearly plan to remain here longer than a few minutes. The broken truck is being inspected. Tools are brought out. The tanks remain stationary, engines idling. For Ivan, this means one thing. They will soon enter his property. He quietly returns to the barn, thinking through the small amount of control he still has. He looks at his plow, the fuel cans, the rope, the bottles. These are not weapons, just farm equipment. But he knows that if soldiers start combing through his barn, he will lose everything, and possibly much worse. He takes a slow breath. No dramatic emotions, no sudden courage. Just a simple, heavy realization. If he does nothing, the Germans will take whatever they want. If he does something, he might buy time for his family. The engines keep rumbling outside. Ivan closes the barn door behind him. Ivan stands inside the barn, letting his eyes adjust to the dim light. The place is filled with the usual things a small farm needs to function. Sacks of feed, tools hanging on wooden beams, an old workbench, kerosene cans for the lamp, a broken wheelbarrow, and a pile of empty glass bottles. He is not thinking about fighting a tank. He knows perfectly well that a farmer with basic tools has no chance against armored vehicles or trained soldiers. His thoughts stay on something simpler: how to slow the Germans down long enough to keep them away from his house. He examines the heavy steel plow. It is normally attached to his horse, but today the horse is hidden behind the shed. The plow is solid metal, old but strong. It weighs enough that even 2 men would struggle to lift it cleanly. Ivan considers the road outside. German supply trucks are not built for rough debris. A plow placed in the wrong spot could damage a tire or force the driver to stop again. It's not much, but it's something. He steps outside the back of the barn, keeping low behind a stack of firewood. From here he can see the German soldiers clustered around the broken truck. They are distracted. One tank crewman is smoking, leaning halfway out of his hatch. Another soldier relieves himself near the ditch. No one is watching the side of the farm. Ivan returns to the barn and grabs two items, a rope and the kerosene can. The rope is old but usable. The kerosene is not a weapon. It is lamp fuel, nothing more. But Ivan has learned over the years that kerosene burns slowly and spreads easily when spilled. He sets the can down and forces himself to think. He is not trying to destroy anything. He is trying to limit where the soldiers will walk. A small controlled fire, placed in the field near the barn, might draw attention away from the house. A distraction, not an attack. But a fire can spread too fast, and the wind is unpredictable tonight. He sets the kerosene aside. He looks again at the plow. It remains the most practical object he has, heavy enough to interfere with a truck, harmless enough that no one would assume sabotage. If a driver hits it in the dark, the truck could stall or swerve. Maybe that would force the Germans to remain on the road and avoid wandering into his farm buildings. He wraps the rope around the base of the plow and drags it inch by inch toward the side fence. His breathing grows heavier, and sweat forms despite the cooling night air. Every scrape of metal against dirt sounds too loud, but the engine noise from the tanks helps cover it. When he reaches the fence, he keeps the plow hidden in the grass. He will move it to the road only if the soldiers start approaching the house. Before making any decision, he returns to the barn to think again. Ivan is a cautious man. Every step he takes is slow, deliberate, and based on observation, not impulse. Outside, the Germans continue to work on the truck. One of them shouts something in German, frustrated. A flashlight beam moves under the vehicle. The repair is not going well. Ivan takes a final look at the objects around him. The bottles, the tools, the fuel. None of it feels useful against trained soldiers. He knows that. He is not imagining himself as a hero. He only wants to reduce the danger, even slightly. He hears new footsteps outside. He freezes. The sound is close. Too close. Someone is walking along the fence line again. Ivan kneels behind a stack of hay and waits. The footsteps stop. The soldier is only a few meters away. The footsteps pause near the fence. Ivan stays low, breathing quietly through his nose. From behind the haystack, he can see the soldier's boots through a gap in the boards. The man stands still for several seconds, scanning the dark field. Maybe he heard something. Maybe he is just bored. There is no way to know. After a moment, the soldier turns back toward the column. Ivan listens to the gravel under his boots fade. Only when the sound fully disappears does he move again. He leaves the barn slowly, keeping his body low behind the shadow of the building. The German column is still parked. The broken truck has not moved an inch, and the men working on it now seem irritated. One uses a flashlight to check the engine compartment. Another sits on a crate, smoking. The tanks remain idling, the engines making a steady mechanical rumble. Ivan studies the situation. If the soldiers continue the repair for much longer, they will likely start looking around for tools or materials, exactly what he wants to avoid. His barn has items they consider useful. Once they step inside, he will lose control of the situation. He looks at the plow lying in the grass near the fence. Moving it onto the road is risky. If a soldier sees him, his intentions will be questioned immediately. But leaving it where it is accomplishes nothing. He waits. The light from the Germans' flashlights shifts. One soldier walks behind the truck to check the rear axle. For a brief moment, no one is looking toward the farm. That is the only opening he will get. Ivan grips the rope, slides the plow under the fence, and pulls it onto the road's edge. He works slowly to avoid scraping metal on stone. The plow is heavy, and each movement takes effort. But the noise from the tank engines masks the sound well enough. He positions the plow just off the main tire track, close enough that the next vehicle moving forward in low light will hit it, but not so obvious that a soldier shining a flashlight will immediately notice. It is the kind of obstacle that can bend an axle or tear a tire if hit at the wrong angle. Not guaranteed, but possible. And possible is the best he can hope for. He steps back into the shadows and waits again. The Germans continue shouting at each other. The repair is clearly not going well. One soldier slams the truck door in frustration. Another kicks a metal toolbox. A tank crewman calls out something, impatient about the delay. Ivan watches carefully. If they abandon the repair for the night, they might move the entire column forward to reposition, right over the plow. If they succeed in fixing it soon, they might still move and hit it anyway. Either way, the plow is now the only small factor he can influence. A minute later, one of the soldiers signals to the others. They are preparing to try the engine again. The man in the driver's seat cranks it once. Nothing. He tries again. The starter motor whines, then catches weakly. The truck sputters to life. Ivan feels his heartbeat kick up slightly, not from courage or excitement, just pressure. If the truck moves forward even a few meters in poor visibility, the plow might do its job. The soldiers begin removing tools from under the engine. Another man waves his arm, signaling for the half-track to move up a bit to realign the vehicles. The half-track's headlights flicker on. And now, for the first time, Ivan feels genuine concern. Not for the plow, but for himself. Headlights mean visibility. If the lights sweep across the side of the road, the plow may be spotted. He steps farther back into the dark, behind the barn's corner. The half-track lurches forward slightly. Its right wheel is aligned with the plow. Ivan waits. The half-track rolls forward at low speed. Its headlights swing across the road, lighting up the ground in a wide arc. For a moment, Ivan thinks the beam will fall directly on the plow, but the angle is shallow, and the heavy metal shape blends into the uneven dirt. The driver keeps moving. The right wheel hits the plow. There is no explosion, no dramatic crash, just a hard metallic jolt, followed by a grinding noise as the wheel climbs over the edge of the steel blade. The vehicle slows, then stops. The engine keeps running, but the driver immediately shouts something. Short, sharp, irritated. A second German soldier walks up to check. The half-track is tilted slightly to one side. The plow is lodged under the wheel, pinned by the vehicle's weight. One man kicks the plow, another crouches down with a flashlight. They argue. From distance, Ivan can't hear the exact words, but the tone is clear. Annoyance, not alarm. They think it's farm debris, nothing more. Still, the obstruction delays the column again. The half-track cannot move until they pull the plow free. Soldiers gather, trying to lift or drag it out, but the machine's weight holds it firmly in place. Someone fetches a pry bar from the broken truck. Ivan watches the scene with practical detachment. He did not plan anything beyond this. A delay is the best outcome he imagined. He is not trying to harm the soldiers. He is trying to protect his home from being searched. But delays make soldiers impatient. One of the tank crewmen climbs out of his Panzer III. He walks toward the barn area, carrying a small electric lamp. He is not rushing, just curious, maybe looking for another route or checking the surroundings. Ivan steps back behind the shed, staying out of the light. The crewman stops near the fence, scanning the ground. Ivan stays very still. The man seems more interested in the road than the farm. He looks at the half-track, shakes his head and turns back. For now, that is enough. After a few minutes, the Germans manage to lift the half-track slightly, using a jack taken from one of the trucks. Two men pull the plow out from under the wheel and toss it to the side of the road. The driver reverses a meter, then straightens the vehicle. The problem is technical but simple, and they handle it efficiently. It is clear these troops have dealt with plenty of farm obstacles during the advance eastward. Ivan realizes the plow will not be useful again tonight. The soldiers will notice if it appears on the road a second time. He returns quietly toward the barn. His mind stays focused, practical. There is no sense of victory, no relief. The German column is still here. The soldiers are still restless, and as long as they remain, the risk to his family stays the same. Inside the barn, he checks the kerosene can again. Still full. He looks at the bottles. He looks at the dry hay. And he considers something he has been avoiding. Fire. A fire can draw soldiers away from the buildings, but a fire can also spread. It can destroy his barn or fields. It can get out of control fast. He thinks for a long moment. Outside, the truck engine sputters, then settles into a steady idle. Soldiers are preparing to get back on the road. Ivan knows he has only a short window to make a decision. Ivan stands in the barn doorway, listening. The German repair crew has finished packing their tools. The broken truck engine now runs at a rough but usable idle. Voices carry over the road, short, irritated, ready to move. The soldiers want to leave. That should be good news. But Ivan knows one thing. Before any column moves out, soldiers sometimes walk the area to look for water sources, shortcuts, or objects they want to take. If they decide to check his barn now, there is nothing he can do to stop them. He looks at the items in front of him. The kerosene can, a handful of empty bottles, old rags, and a shovel. Nothing explosive, nothing special. Just normal farm materials. But he considers a simple idea. Creating a controlled, small fire away from the house, close enough to draw attention, far enough that it won't spread to the barn. Not to attack, not to damage equipment, just to pull soldiers away from the structures he wants to protect. He opens the barn door slightly and checks the wind. It is soft and steady, blowing east. That makes one location safer, the far edge of his field, where the ground is mostly dirt and sparse grass. A small burn there would die quickly. He fills one bottle halfway with kerosene, stuffs a rag into the neck, and sets it aside. This is not a weapon. It is simply a crude fire starter. Farmers use similar methods for clearing dry brush or igniting stubborn, damp wood. He takes a second bottle but decides against filling it. One small flame is enough for a distraction. More than that risks losing control. Ivan walks quietly toward the back of the field, keeping low. The German soldiers are focused on the road. Their attention is on the vehicle lineup and the final checks before departure. No one looks his way. He stops at a patch of bare ground. No dry hay, no wooden fencing, just dirt. He places the bottle on the soil, pulls the rag slightly to expose it, and lights it with a match. The flame rises slowly, steady but contained. Ivan steps back several meters. The fire grows to the size of a small cooking flame, noticeable but not dangerous. Within a minute, one of the German soldiers on the road sees the light. He calls out in German. Another man walks toward the field, shouting something about Feuer. The group's attention shifts. A junior soldier jogs toward the flame, then looks around to see if it's spreading. It's not. More importantly, the soldier does not walk toward the barn or the house. He goes to the small burn spot, examines it, steps on a loose ember, and waves his arm dismissively. He walks back to the road, calling out that it's nothing important. The distraction, simple as it is, works as intended. Ivan returns quietly to the side of the barn, watching. The column now reorganizes. The half-track moves into position. The trucks prepare to roll. The tank engines increase to a deeper rumble. The soldiers are ready to leave, but movement on the far end of the line catches Ivan's attention. The lead driver signals something. Then a second signal follows. The last truck pulls slightly forward. A moment later, the entire column begins to advance. Ivan steps deeper into the shadows and waits for the sound to fade. But something unexpected happens. The last Panzer III slows again, too soon after starting to move. The driver sticks his head out, looking at the ground ahead. He has noticed something. Ivan cannot see what it is from this distance. It is not the plow. That was thrown aside earlier. It must be something else. Maybe a hole, a soft patch, or leftover debris from the earlier repair. The tank stops completely. The rest of the column halts again. Ivan feels the familiar heaviness settle in his chest. The Germans are not gone yet. The last Panzer III remains stopped on the road. Its engine runs at a steady idle, but the vehicle does not move. A crewman climbs out of the turret and jumps onto the ground, shining a small electric lamp at the dirt directly in front of the tank. Ivan watches from beside the barn. He cannot see the exact problem, but the crewman kneels and digs at the ground with his boot. Whatever it is, it seems minor, something partly buried or uneven. Another crewman joins him. They speak briefly, then gesture to the driver. The tank attempts to move forward again, but the metal treads slip slightly before catching. The tank halts once more. The soldiers appear frustrated. These delays are small, but combined they slow the entire movement of the column. The lead vehicles cannot advance until the rear is aligned. The officers are aware of this, and their tone grows sharper. For Ivan, each extra minute means more risk. Soldiers who wait too long tend to wander, and when they wander, they search. He keeps his body low and silent, hoping they won't think to check his property. The tank crew begins clearing the road manually. One uses a shovel from a truck to dig out a soft patch of mud. The June heat had baked the topsoil earlier, but recent rains created pockets of loose, wet dirt underneath. The tank may have partially sunk into one of these pockets. It's a common issue on rural roads, nothing unusual. A half-track driver gets down to help. 2 more soldiers stand around offering suggestions none of them seem to like. The work continues for several minutes. Ivan stays still behind a wooden support beam, watching carefully. Every time a soldier glances in his direction, he shifts deeper into shadow. He knows the layout well enough to avoid detection. At last, the tank's driver tries again. This time, the treads grip the dirt more cleanly. The Panzer III moves forward half a meter without slipping. The crewman waves his hand, satisfied. Slowly, the rear of the column starts to move. The relief Ivan feels is not dramatic. It is quiet and practical. If the Germans finally leave, the night will end without any search, confrontation, or confiscation. He keeps watching. The second truck passes. Then the first. The half-track rolls by with the metal plating rattling slightly as it hits uneven patches. As the column gets fully underway, dust rises into the air. Soldiers inside the trucks talk loudly, some laughing, clearly glad the delays are over. The tanks follow with a rumbling weight that makes the ground vibrate. The last vehicle begins to disappear down the road. Ivan stays in the shadows until the sound fades to a distant hum. Only then does he exhale fully. He walks toward the field, inspecting the small burn patch. It is dead. No smoke, no embers. A clean, contained distraction. Nothing more. He goes back to the barn, puts away the kerosene bottle, and closes the door quietly. His actions tonight were simple and rooted in necessity. Prevent troops from entering his property, avoid confrontation, avoid loss. Nothing more. He looks toward the road one last time. The dust is settling. The Germans are gone. Ivan has no sense of triumph, only relief that the danger passed without the soldiers stepping inside his house or taking anything from his farm. He turns off the barn lamp, closes the latch, and walks back to his home. The night is quiet again.